Hey YouTube, it's Marita and welcome to another edition of the Nurse Lounge. And today we're going to do a get to know me nurse edition. So if you want to see what questions I'm answering regarding being a nurse, you need to stay tuned. Jump right in. I have about 8 questions that I have selected that I'm going to answer for you to get to know me better as a registered nurse. So we're going to jump right in. These questions are actually good interview questions. So if you can answer these questions for yourself, then that would be great in helping you learning the interview process and how to best answer these kind of questions at an interview, because these are some of the questions they do ask at interviews. So I decided that I would do this video for not only you to get to know me as a nurse, but also for you to think about these questions for yourself so that you know how to best answer them if you were asked these questions. These questions can make or break you in terms of your interview. Now, I will not be answering these questions like I'm in an interview. I'm asking or answering these questions just for the sake of answering them for you. So I will not be, I will be using terms or giving stories or whatever that may not be the best for an interview. So I'm not answering these again. I'm not answering these questions as if I were in an interview. I'm answering these questions for you to get to know me better as a registered nurse. So the first question is, why did you decide on a career as a nurse? So I became a nurse, not really because of the fact that I had anybody in my family as a nurse, but I became a nurse because honestly, I, at the time, was just finishing a degree in psychology. I was a single parent, and I needed to find a career in which I could make decent money without using government assistance. And I had 2 little girls at the time, so I needed to be able to do something that would help take care of my girls as a single parent, that I thought that I could get a job anywhere I went, wherever I moved. And that's why I decided on a career as a nurse. I really didn't know what nursing really entailed. I figured that you had to be very smart to be a nurse, and I really didn't know if I had what it took to be a nurse. But I was definitely going to go try pursue nursing school at that point in time, because I needed an option in which I could take care of my girls and be a single parent and not have to depend on the government for assistance, like I was saying. All right, so number 2 is, what do you find rewarding about this job? So as a nurse, I actually love being a nurse for the most part. There are some days where I could do without. But the most thing I found rewarding, I am an OB nurse, in case you all did not know, and I'm also a nurse educator. So I love OB because I love moms and babies. I love moms who really want to learn how to take care of their babies, and bringing life into the world is something that's very important to me. And I happen to love kids myself. I have 4 of my own. But with that being said, I love everything about moms and babies and the giving birth process and the miracle life, and then moms and dads meeting their babies for the first time, or just people, I guess nowadays it's same-sex couples or whatever, but people meeting their babies for the first time. And I firmly believe as well that in order to be a mom, you don't actually have to give birth. It's just the element of who you are that you bring to that child's life. So again, I love moms, I love babies, and that was just the marriage of the 2. I happen to love it. I'm also a nurse educator. And so as a nurse educator, I love that job because I love when students have that aha moment. I love when I take a student from knowing basically nothing to helping them understand as to why it's important for us to do certain things that we have to do as a nurse. And when they finally get it and it clicks for them, then I have done my job. I absolutely love what I do as a nurse educator. I am considered to be one of the toughest nurse educators in my program that I teach in currently. Some students, or maybe a lot of students, actually do not care for me because of how tough I am, but they come back later and tell me, I can now see why you're the way you were, and I really appreciate you for being who you were at the now that they've saw how nursing really is. And that is rewarding in itself for me. That makes me feel like I've actually done what I needed to do. And I'm very appreciative of the students who come back to me and say, hey, we actually like the fact that you were hard on us, because like I tell you all, any of you all have easy instructors, they are not doing you any favors when it comes to nursing school. They're not doing you any favors. Hold on, let me adjust my lighting. There we go. You can see me better. There we go. So anyway, they are not doing you any favors when it comes to nursing school. And I tell my students that if you have an easy time in nursing school, meaning that everything is given to you, you don't have to work for anything, the tests are easy, and it just doesn't come natural to you, you're being disserviced. So, and you're not getting what you should be getting out of your program. So just know that. Number 3, how do you deal with someone who isn't satisfied with your patient care? So this is a tough one because of the fact that with most of us, we get kind of defensive when people are upset with our patient care. They don't like how we do things. As a nurse, I'm typically as a school or not school nurse, as a staff nurse, a nurse on the floor, I typically am the nurse that the charge nurse will give the toughest patients to anyway. So when it comes to them, I'm a tough love kind of person. I'm definitely a mama bear, tough love, like, okay, well, you're going to learn today type of thing. And I'm not going to pacify you. I'm going to make sure you get everything that you need. But these are the things that we have to get done in order for you to get what you need to get out of here as a patient. So I'm a kind of a tough love kind of nurse anyway. And so when the question is asking specifically about how to deal with someone who isn't satisfied with your care, first I have to actually, think about myself. Is it something that I truly did? And if it's something that I truly did, then I need to try to do what's called service recovery. So maybe sometimes I walk into a patient's room and my eyebrows are burrowed because maybe I'm thinking about something else that's going on. And honestly, I've had a situation or 2 or maybe 3 where nothing was really wrong, but I was so focused on what I was doing, trying to get the IV pump to work or do something, that they thought I was actually upset. I had my eyebrows were kind of burrowed, and they thought I was upset about something. And even the dad said, "Are you okay? Are you not in a good mood today?" I said, "Oh no, I'm perfectly fine." And honestly, all it was the fact that I was literally trying to figure out how to get this pump to stop beeping because I had troubleshooted. There was no air in the line. It was set up the correct way. There was fluid in the bag. There was no air in the line. I had did everything I knew to do. And so I was just kind of frustrated with the situation, not with the patient. So in that situation, I didn't provide bad patient care, but they perceived as me not liking my job or me not wanting to do what I was there to do because of my expression. So as a result of that, now I'm more cognizant of how I express myself, try to be mindful of my facial expressions and things like that, and that they can be perceived in a negative manner even when I am trying to be positive. But let me think of a situation truly in which a patient was not satisfied with my care. At the end of the day, I follow policies. Point blank period. I will follow policies. And if they don't like the policies that we follow or we have to follow, and another nurse is willing to break the policies for them to give them what they want, then so be it. They need that other nurse. I'm not the one. But otherwise, if it's something that I truly did wrong, I do what's called service recovery, where I try to investigate what I did wrong and try to do corrective measures to make sure that they are satisfied with the result. So I always apologize if I say I'm going to be in a room at a certain time. I apologize for the delay in their care or whatever it happens to be if I am wrong. If I'm not wrong, I don't own it. That's just me. So these people who, well, even if you're not wrong, no, I don't do that. If I'm not wrong, I'm not owning it. If the patient did something wrong or the patient had an expectation that was unrealistic, for example, they think because you've had a baby and you've taken this medication, this narcotic medication, that you should be pain-free. And there's nothing that's pain-free about having a baby, whether it comes out vaginally or via C-section. There is nothing pain-free about having a baby. And I don't apologize for that. And you can only get the medication that you're allowed to get. So I do give them their medication as they need it, based on vital signs and things like that. I'm not one to give medication just because you want it. If your vital signs don't dictate that you can have this medication, so if your vital signs, your blood pressure is 70/40, you're not getting a Norco 10 from me. You're not getting a Percocet 10 from me. I'm not doing it. If another nurse wants to come in and do it, she can come in and do it, but I'm not going to do it. So when that vital signs or that blood pressure bottom out, that's going to be on her, not on me, not on my license. So I'm just that kind of nurse. It just depends on what the situation is, but I will do the best I can to fix the situation if I feel like I've truly done something and as a disservice to the patient. All right, so the next question is number 4. Tell me what you feel your greatest skill as a nurse is. So I think my greatest skill is that I am thorough and I listen. So when I say I'm thorough, I mean that when I do a head-to-toe assessment, I do a head-to-toe assessment. When I ask the appropriate questions for my patients, I ask the appropriate questions. And I find that there's patients that I've had who've been there for a couple of days even, who have said to me, oh, no one's checked my home sign, or they don't know it's a home sign, but no one's did that before. Or they even claim people haven't even felt their fundus. And I'm like, okay, well, what are they doing if they haven't felt their fundus in OB? But that's neither here nor there. So I consider myself to be a very thorough nurse. So I'm listening to heart sounds, I'm listening to bowel sounds, to lung sounds, and I'm making sure that, you're wheezing. Have you always been wheezing? Or your blood pressure is kind of on the high side. Is it always this high, or it's very low? Is it always this low? Do you happen to know what your trends are? Just to see if they know. Now, mind you, I'll go check and see what the trends are myself. But I'm very mindful of that, and I definitely hone in on those things and making sure I educate. That's the other thing I think that my other skill is. I am a very good educator, which is why I'm a nurse educator in the first place. But not only do I do thorough assessments, my education skills in terms of educating my patients, is wonderful. There's things that I've said to patients that are like, okay, I never knew that. And if I'd have known that, then I would have did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Or I'm always the one who's going to tell you the side effects of your medications that you're taking. When you have your Norco, your Percocet, I'm going to say, you are aware this will make you sleepy. Are you aware of that? And most of the time they do know, but there's sometimes they're like, no, I didn't know that. I was wondering why I was getting sleepy all the time. Well, what have these nurses been doing? They should be educating you on the side effects of these medications, and they have not been. So I'm very good about doing that with my patients. I'm very thorough, and I'm a very good educator in terms of making sure that my patients know exactly what they're taking or what they're getting. Or when it comes to discharge teaching, I'm very good with the discharge teaching, making sure you come back to the doctor or you call the doctor if this, that, and the other. I'm also a great patient advocate, and I will definitely back my patient up when I need to make sure that when it comes between them and the doctor, that the doctor is not doing what he or she's supposed to do. So I make sure my patient knows what's supposed to happen, and I tell them the questions to ask the doctor, or give them the verbiage, shall I say, to use to get what they need to get. And so I educate them in that way as well. So most of them appreciate that. All right, number 5, it says, how do you handle the stress of the job? Well, sometimes I don't handle it well. I have to be the first to admit I am not the best person under stress. I don't really shut down, but I kind of get focused when it comes to being a nurse. I am PRN, so when I'm being PRN, I space my shifts out on purpose. I do not like to work, some people, we have to work 3 shifts in 6 weeks. And you would think, well, why don't you just go ahead and get your 3 shifts off? That way you can spend, say, 5 weeks not worrying about working again. But for me, that doesn't work. That stresses me out, because if I have one bad day and I work 2 more days after that, more than likely the next 2 days are going to be just as bad. And stress for me, it causes me anxiety. And I do not want any more anxiety. So therefore, I space my shifts out. So I usually do 1 shift every couple of weeks in terms of scheduling myself. We're required to work on a Friday. And so I schedule myself for usually 1 Friday, and the other 2 shifts are other days of the week. And I usually try to make sure one of those days is the day in which I can be down staff, which means I don't have to work. Just to kind of be on payroll and just say I signed up for my 3rd shift. But I handle the stress in terms of spacing my shifts. When I go into work each day, I honestly pray before I get off the elevator. I'm like, okay, let this be a good day. Let my patient load be fair. Let them be okay. And if they're not fair, I'm going to call the charge nurse out on it. I do not accept assignments that is not equal as best as it can be. Mind you, there's going to be some times where it's just a little different, but you're not going to give me the one, I'm not going to be just doing blood and you give me the first admit as well. I'm not doing all that. So you need to split this up. I'm not one also who does, oh, well, I've had these patients for the past 2 days, and so therefore I get all the new fresh patients. No, ma'am, we're not doing that. We're going to go ahead and split these patients up. So I kind of minimize the stress of my job by making sure that we are as fair and as equal, and we do teamwork at our job. So that's kind of how I handle the stress. I space my shifts. I make sure that when I do go to work that the assignments are as fair as can be. Sometimes even volunteer to take the first admit, to take it off their hands or whatever. I try to make sure that instead of with the other stresses of the job, I try to make sure that I get my work done. So I'm really big on coming in the morning, eating breakfast, because I usually get report, then go eat breakfast, and then come back and start my assessments and things like that. And I just basically do my patient care and get that stuff done and try my best not to get behind. Because if I get behind, that creates more stress for me and more anxiety, and I get behind for the whole day. So I like to go ahead and try to stay on top of things and not get behind with my patient care. All right, number 6. Are you comfortable working with doctors? Wait, are you comfortable working with other doctors and nurses? I'm very comfortable. There's no issues with me regarding doctors and nurses. I'm not one who gets caught up in I don't get caught up in doctors like, oh, he's a doctor or she's a doctor and I'm scared of him or her. I gives a damn who you are. You're human just like I am. Your scope of practice is different than my scope of practice. A physician has nothing to do in terms of scope of practice is different than a nurse's scope of practice. So you stay in your lane and I stay in my lane. There's times as nurses that they actually count on us more than we count on them. You know, think about your SBAR, your situation, background, assessment, and R is recommendation, which usually comes from the registered nurse. Yes, that's correct. So therefore, I am the one who provides the recommendation. So, hey, my patient has gas, pains. Can I go ahead and give her Mylicon 80 milligrams BID or TID or whatever after meals? That's all I want to know. And he's either going to say, or she's either going to say yes or no. And 9 times out of 10, since I know what I want, they're going to say, sure, I don't care. So again, I'm not intimidated by doctors. I'm not intimidated by nurses. I used to be, but not anymore. I think that just comes with time and experience. So we interact with doctors and nurses. That's just part of what we do. So I have no issues at all interacting with physicians and stating how I feel. Now, if I don't know, I don't know. So if I don't know, I will simply say, hey, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you, or I'll ask another nurse. I have no problem admitting that I don't know something. Unfortunately for me, because I am already a nurse educator and because I'm getting my doctoral degree, a lot of the nurses come to me asking me questions thinking that I would know the answer. I'm like, I don't know everything. I just don't. So, there is that issue. But outside of that, I have no problem asking questions. I have no problem delegating to others. I have no problems calling physicians when I need something. Now, I am mindful of their personality and I'm mindful of just their general character, how they are. I have a physician that if I know she's coming in a couple hours, I'm not going to call about a Colace. I'll just wait till she get there and say, I need Colace for your patient. That's kind of how she is. I have another physician where maybe not for a Colace, but maybe something more serious than that, maybe pain medication adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and call him. I don't care if he is coming in the next hour or two because he's just that way. He wants to know about his patients all the time and he's type A personality. So for him, I'm going to go ahead and call and say, hey, your patient, this medication is not working for her. Can we switch her from Percocet to Norco or whatever, or Norco to Percocet, or whatever we happen to do. And he's usually okay with that. So you have to kind of get to know your doctors. You got to get to know your nurses and know their personalities, what they like, what they don't like. Once you do that and get yelled at a few times and then be like, I ain't the one. You're not going to be yelling at me for no reason, And even if I make a mistake, you're still not going to be yelling at me for no reason because that's not how you handle things like that. So I am very comfortable with doctors and nurses. I have no problems with calling doctors when I have a problem. All right, number 7 says, what do you find is the hardest part about being a nurse? Where do I begin with that one? Well, now in lieu of the coronavirus that we have going on, the pandemic that we have going on, the hardest part about being a nurse to me, especially right now, is being on the front line. We don't know really what we are getting into when we deal with our patients. Like I said, I have moms and babies, and people don't come in and says, I have coronavirus. We don't know until they start reacting or until they start having symptoms. And by the time with any virus that you start having symptoms, you've already been exposed to that. So as first line, we're first line as registered or as just nurses in general. And that means we probably could have this, this virus and not even know it. So we have to take extra precautions. Now that's just in lieu of the pandemic going on. But in general, for me, the hardest part about, hold on, let me make sure I answer the question correctly. The hardest part about being a nurse for me, in addition to that, is I always tell people as a staff nurse in the hospital, there's a whole laundry list of if the hardest part about being a nurse. For one, the hospital never shuts down. Would you ever want it to shut down? No, but it never shuts down. So I'm required to be at work no matter what. So when it comes to having a family, this job is not conducive as a staff nurse. This job is not conducive for families, for people with children, because being that we're in this situation with this pandemic, schools are closed, but I have to be at work for 12 plus hours. who's gonna watch the kids? Who's gonna watch my kids? So I'm always trying to figure out childcare solutions for that. Then, of course, if you work in a hospital, you have to deal with holidays and weekends and night shift and things like that. That's very hard for a working family. When it comes to being a nurse, for me, I'm tired of the 12-hour shifts specifically. And also about being a nurse, I feel that our job has become so much more customer service than it is actual patient care, that makes it hard as well, because we spend so much of our time trying to please the patient that we're not even taking care of the patient. We spend so much time charting on patients that we're not taking care of the patients. I spend more time charting than I do actually doing patient care, truth be told. So when I go into my patient's room and do my rounds, I could spend when it comes to morning assessments, I could probably spend about, let's say 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes doing an assessment, passing her meds, and getting her vital signs. So if it takes me 15 minutes to do that, it takes me about a good 30 to 45, maybe 30 minutes to chart on that one patient. That's how long it takes, depending, because we chart on like 9 different screens for our patients. So it's a lot to chart. And then you have interventions to do. And then they've decided that, guess what? You got to clean the fridge out. Then guess what? You have to do staffing. We have to do our own staffing. Then guess what? We have to call DCS when we the nurses call DCS. That used to be a case management job that they did that. But no, we as nurses now have to call DCS when we have a mom who's positive for a drug or a baby that comes up positive for a drug. We have to call DCS and deal with getting the case number and doing all this stuff. Nurses are mandated reporters, but in the hospital setting, that used to be delegated to a caseworker, not us. So we're front line for a lot of things that we have to do, and that makes our job so much harder. And not only that, we have to deal with patient acuity issues. So I have patients who are higher acuity, staffing issues. So we have people who are short staffed quite a bit, and I have to come in and pick up, or they want us to take over our matrix, which I refuse to do, by the way. I don't take over my matrix. You can send me home. I don't care what you do, but I'm not taking over the matrix. I have done that on occasion, and I don't mind doing that on occasion, taking over the matrix, but that's not a mainstay for me. Once you start doing stuff like that, they will expect you to do stuff like that. And it's not like can you or will you, you're getting your 7th patient. We are a 1-to-6 ratio for our units. They will tell you're getting your 7th patient, and I ain't the one. I'm not doing 7 patients. I don't mind helping every so often, but I will not do that as a mainstay to make sure that I maintain my nursing license and keep me safe. So hopefully I answered that question. That's a lot, I know, but that is for me a lot of the hardest parts of being a nurse in general. And then another question, or the last question we're gonna do is, let me see. Would you say you are a team player? And that is a big interview question. So again, I'm not answering these like I was in an interview, but when it comes to what I consider myself a team player, of course I am. I'm willing to help anyone no matter what. You will find yourself in situations where there are patients, or not patients, but nurses that you cannot stand as a nurse or as a person, period. But when it comes to those patients, you come together no matter what to help take care of those patients. So there's a nurse, well, there's a few nurses where I work that personally, no. I wouldn't do anything for them outside of nursing. Like, don't even ask me type of thing, because they're liars, they manipulate, they do things like that. But when it comes to patient care, we have no choice. We have to put our differences aside and have to come and work with you to help take care of our patients. And I think we do that very effectively, and I do that very effectively. So I do consider myself a team player because I want somebody to help me if I needed help, and so therefore I'm going to help you if you need help. No matter how I feel about you personally, I'm going to help you because we're doing this for the patient's sake and also to maintain our licenses. So if we don't like each other, no matter what, we need to maintain our nursing license. So anyway, those were 8 get to know me questions, Nurse Edition. I hope you found those beneficial. Again, those are some questions that you may encounter at your first interview, at a interview. And think about how you would answer those questions yourself. Definitely answer them in a professional manner if you're actually in a real interview. But again, I wanted you to know a little bit more about me, the nurse, okay? Again, my name is Marita. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 16 years. And OB is my specialty. I'm in school to get my doctoral degree. And this is where I really want to be. I love being a nurse, and most days I love being a nurse. And anyway, that's enough for this video, but I do want y'all to stay tuned. You all know that who watch my videos, the nursing videos, that I do my work vlogs. I'm coming up on a work vlog here soon because I have to go to the hospital and work. So we will see in that video what what new restrictions or precautions I have to take on an OB floor when it comes to this new coronavirus. Are we wearing our N95s, or we're just wearing general mask, or we're not wearing anything? So that's something I'm interested to see when I go to work next Friday. But with that being said, if you have questions or more you want to know about me being a nurse or me being a nurse educator, put those in the comment section below. Feel free to DM me on my Instagram. It is melaninRN_MPN, and I'll have that listed in the box below. Also, if you look at the banner at the top, you will see 2 icons for IG. One is my plus size fitness plus size journey, and the other one is my the nurse lounge that is IG, that goes with this YouTube page. They go the same. So that actually just kind of focuses on the other side of me of being a nurse, in terms of my doctoral journey, nurse memes, just my life. It's a personal blog page, but more focused around the nursing essence of who I am. So anyway, until the next video, you all take care. Bye-bye.